Billionaire CEO adopted 4 unwanted kids. What they did years later will break your heart. They called him the unstoppable visionary Jordan Lattimore, a self-made millionaire CEO whose life was measured in stock valuations and magazine covers. Few knew the lonely heart behind the polished facade, the wounds that success could never mend. Then came a day that changed everything. A hushed conversation with a social worker, a desperate plea, and 4 unwanted children who had slipped through the cracks. No one believed a busy mogul would adopt them. Fewer believed the kids could heal his hidden scars. But the real story would be etched not in business headlines, but in heartbreak, sacrifice, and unforgettable redemption. Jordan Lattimore was born in a modest suburb outside of Boston, Massachusetts, to middle-class parents who believed that hard work and determination were the keys to a better life. His father, Richard Lattimore, worked for decades at a small manufacturing plant, while his mother, Judith, stayed at home raising Jordan and his 2 sisters. Jordan's childhood was marked by both genuine love and the looming shadow of financial insecurity. He watched his parents scrap together enough money each year to pay bills, often foregoing their own comforts so their children could have what they needed for school. Though Jordan excelled in academics, becoming known at his high school for his knack for mathematics and his leadership on the debate team, he could never quite escape the feeling that the world was built for those born into privilege. He decided that someday he would not just climb the ladder, he would build his own. With the help of scholarships and countless hours spent at the local library, Jordan was accepted into Harvard University. This acceptance was both a dream and a responsibility, for he knew he carried his family's aspirations on his shoulders. He vowed never to let them down, even if it meant sacrificing his personal desires for a future of achievement and security. Life at Harvard introduced Jordan to an entirely different world, a universe of wealth, connections, and boundless opportunity. Most of his peers arrived on campus in expensive cars, wearing designer clothing and discussing international vacations. Jordan arrived in a second-hand sedan and wore off brand shoes, but he was determined. Early on, he studied the mannerisms of those around him. He learned that success was more than good grades. It was about how you carried yourself, who you built relationships with, and how you seized opportunities without letting them slip. Before his sophomore year ended, he had already established a small tech consultancy from his dorm room. By the time he graduated with honors, Jordan had built a reputation as a relentless go-getter. He attracted enough investors to start a cybersecurity firm called ShieldCore, which quickly landed significant contracts with banks and medical institutions concerned about digital threats. Within just a few years, the company's success skyrocketed, and the public started calling him the next big thing in tech. Jordan relished the accolades, but also remained acutely aware of the responsibility he felt to his parents and his hometown. He wanted his family to have everything they needed, but he also felt a deeper calling, one that was less tangible yet more profound. It was at a high-profile fundraising gala for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation where Jordan's life took an unexpected turn. Among the crowd of CEOs, philanthropists, and celebrities, Jordan felt strangely out of place. He'd climbed the social ladder faster than he had ever imagined, and at only 32, he was the youngest person in the room wearing a CEO badge. While sipping on sparkling water, he rarely drank alcohol. He struck up a conversation with a woman named Claire Donovan, a social worker from a small local agency. Claire wasn't the typical attendee of these glamorous events. She was there representing an orphanage that desperately needed philanthropic support. She told him about 4 children who were all siblings, left behind in a run-down orphanage called Redwood Home. Their father had passed away in a tragic construction accident, and their mother had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. No one knew if she was alive or dead, and no extended family had come forward. The children were considered unadoptable because they came as a group, each with emotional scars that would scare away most prospective parents. Jordan felt a jolt of empathy he couldn't explain. Something about the story lit a quiet flame in his heart, reminding him of his own vow to give back when he had the means. The night after the gala, Jordan couldn't sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of these 4 children: Lucy, Toby, Sienna, and Aidan. He imagined them in a cramped room, frightened and unsure about their future. He recalled times during his own childhood when he felt lost, yet he'd always had a loving family to guide him. Who did these kids have, and what if no one ever stepped up for them? The question gnawed at him until he decided to schedule a meeting at Redwood Home. He needed to see the children's reality firsthand. Claire Donovan agreed to accompany him. The orphanage was tucked in a neglected part of the city, its bricks worn and windows boarded in places. Inside, he was greeted with subdued smiles from staff who clearly struggled to make ends meet. The kids were scattered around a small play area. A little girl with braided hair and inquisitive eyes caught his attention. He recognized her from a photo Claire had shown him. This was Lucy, the eldest, holding her siblings together. In that moment, the notion of adoption seemed less like a distant philanthropic idea and more like a personal calling. The first time Jordan met the children face to face, he didn't know what to expect. Lucy was 9, cautious and already playing the role of a tiny mother figure to the younger ones. Toby was 7, shy, with a quick smile that flickered then vanished. Sienna was 5, clinging to Lucy as though she'd disappear if she let go. And then there was Aidan, just 3 years old, wide-eyed and bewildered by the constant swirl of grown-up decisions shaping his fate. The staff quietly observed from the sidelines, hoping this wealthy visitor might do something they'd never seen before. Jordan sat on the floor, crossing his legs so he was on their level. He brought out a small stuffed toy he had purchased on the way over, a plush turtle with glasses. Professor Turtle, he called it. He joked that the turtle was his assistant for the day. At first, the kids stared at him like they expected this man in a suit to vanish at any moment. Slowly, Lucy cracked a tiny smile. Toby inched closer, and Sienna wrapped her arms around the plush toy as if it were the greatest gift she'd ever received. Jordan felt something break open inside him, a paternal spark he hadn't known existed. Almost immediately after the visit, Jordan started the adoption process. The complicated legalities, the background checks, the invasive home studies, none of it deterred him. Yet the idea of a single bachelor CEO suddenly adopting 4 children raised more than a few eyebrows. Some shareholders at ShieldCore expressed concern. They worried about how Jordan's decision might distract him or create unwanted media scrutiny, but Jordan remained steadfast. For once, he was making a decision based on his heart rather than a business strategy. He moved into a large family-friendly house on the outskirts of Boston, making sure each child would have their own room. The day the adoption was finalized was a momentous occasion, filled with tears and an overwhelming rush of emotion. Lucy, her hair neatly braided by Jordan's mother for the ceremony, held onto a small photograph of her biological father. Toby, wearing a bow tie, asked if he would be called Mr. Toby Lattimore now, drawing a laugh from the judge. Sienna and Aidan were too young to grasp the weight of the moment, but they giggled and clung to Jordan's legs, sensing something big and wonderful was happening. By the end of that day, the Lattimore household had expanded in ways no one would have predicted. Settling into life as a father of 4 was anything but smooth. For years, the children had experienced chaos, abandonment, and fear. They didn't know how to trust fully, especially Lucy, who sometimes had nightmares about losing everyone she loved. Toby struggled in school because he'd never had a stable environment long enough to properly learn. Sienna's timidness often manifested as sudden bursts of tears whenever she heard loud noises, and Aidan, though small, would cling to Jordan with an almost desperate intensity. Jordan hired child psychologists and therapy sessions to help them adjust, determined to be the anchor they needed. On the corporate side, his schedule became a juggling act. He would spend mornings ensuring the kids had breakfast and were ready for school, dash off to Shield Corps for meetings and product rollouts, then race back home in time for dinner and bedtime stories. Sleep became a luxury. Still, Jordan felt an odd sense of fulfillment. Every giggle, every newly learned word, every step in building trust felt like a victory far more meaningful than any business deal. He had once pursued success to escape financial insecurity. Now he strove to keep a family intact. As the children grew older, the Lattimore household took on new challenges. Lucy, entering her teenage years, developed a fierce independence. Sometimes it manifested as a drive to excel in school activities. Other times, she lashed out, testing Jordan's commitment by pushing boundaries. Toby, who discovered a love for painting, transformed a corner of the living room into a mini art studio. Sienna, sweet and quiet, showed a talent for the piano, plinking notes with childlike wonder, until Jordan hired a tutor to help her refine her gift. Little Aidan grew into a curious boy who asked 1,000 questions a day, each one more imaginative than the last. Jordan encouraged each passion. He believed wholeheartedly in nurturing their individual strengths. He remembered what it was like to yearn for resources and opportunities. He hired the best tutors, coaches, and therapists to help them catch up academically and emotionally. Every success, whether Toby painting his first portrait or Lucy winning a school debate, was celebrated like a major milestone. And slowly, the children began to trust that Jordan was not going to abandon them, that, in fact, he was in it for the long haul. With time, the media inevitably caught wind of Jordan's story. A prominent technology magazine featured an article titled "Billionaire CEO Adopts 4 Siblings, a Model of Modern Philanthropy or a PR Stunt." The writer implied that Jordan's actions might be a savvy move to bolster Shield Corps' public image. The article stung, but Jordan refused to dignify it with a response. His priority was the children, not the headlines. Still, he couldn't ignore the heightened scrutiny. Paparazzi occasionally camped outside the house, eager for a snapshot of the reclusive mogul's unconventional family. Jordan installed better security and did everything he could to shield the kids from the public eye. Behind closed doors, the scrutiny took a toll. Lucy felt self-conscious, worrying her friends would see her father's name in gossip columns. Toby withdrew from painting for a while, complaining he couldn't focus with cameras flashing outside. Sienna and Aidan were still young enough to be confused about why strangers wanted pictures of them. In response, Jordan took the family on weekend retreats, quiet getaways, to places like Cape Cod, where they could roam the beaches without feeling watched. It was there, one evening under a pink sunset, that Lucy finally broke her stoic facade and hugged her father, whispering, "Thank you for choosing us." As the siblings stepped into adolescence, each child began to carve a unique path. Lucy excelled academically. She aimed for the Ivy Leagues, just like Jordan, and spent her free time volunteering at local community centers, emulating her father's philanthropic streak. She also wrestled with deeply rooted fears of abandonment, which manifested in her secret diaries filled with anxious thoughts. Toby, on the other hand, plunged into the world of art competitions. He started winning small regional awards, drawing inspiration from the complicated tapestry of his childhood. Sienna, with her musical talent, joined a youth orchestra, practicing tirelessly on an antique piano Jordan had restored. Though outwardly calm, she grappled with stage fright that often brought her to tears right before performances. and Aidan curious, wide-eyed. Aidan fell in love with robots and coding, discovering a knack for technology that both impressed and amused Jordan, who recognized in the boy a mirror of himself at a young age. Each child seemed poised for a bright future, yet beneath their successes lay the tenuous threads of a past that refused to let go easily. The first major sign of trouble arrived in Lucy's 16th year. She was dating a boy named Daniel from her high school, a junior with dreams of being a sports star. One night, past curfew, Lucy snuck out of the house to attend a party. It would have gone unnoticed had she not been brought home by a police officer who'd found her and a group of classmates loitering near an abandoned warehouse. No alcohol or drugs were involved, but the scandal was enough to send shockwaves through Jordan's carefully managed world. He confronted Lucy, who broke down in tears, confessing that she felt unworthy of his love. She feared he would one day realize raising 4 children was too much, and she'd be the first to go. This heartbreak hit Jordan like a freight train. Despite years of therapy and nurturing, Lucy still carried the trauma of abandonment. Rather than punish her harshly, Jordan and Lucy's therapist devised a plan to help her process these fears in a healthier way. It was a turning point that reminded Jordan how deep the scars ran for each of his children. Around the same time, Toby's blossoming art career brought an unexpected dilemma. A well-known art collector in New York City offered him a scholarship to study at a prestigious summer art institute. Toby was thrilled, but the scholarship came with conditions. He'd have to move to New York for 3 months, live under supervision with other teenage artists, and accept financial support from the collector, who was known for catapulting young talents into the spotlight. Jordan was torn. He wanted Toby to pursue his dreams, but was this too big a leap for a 14-year-old who was still adjusting to a stable family life? They consulted Toby's therapist, who cautioned that Toby's emotional well-being might suffer if he were thrust into a high-pressure, competitive environment too soon. Yet Toby insisted that art was his passion, and he didn't want to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Lucy argued that Toby should go, while Sienna remained silent, worried about the family splintering. Ultimately, Jordan left the decision to Toby, who tearfully chose to stay home for 1 more year, determined to prepare himself better for the future. This sacrifice weighed heavily on him, but it also underscored the fact that these children were still, in many ways, healing. Meanwhile, Sienna's piano performances became more frequent. Her tutor saw enormous potential in her, and she started winning regional competitions. Each victory boosted her confidence, but her stage fright never completely vanished. Before each performance, she would clutch a small charm bracelet, a gift from Jordan, and whisper, "He's here with me." In her mind, he was her biological father, who she barely remembered but felt close to whenever she played music. Jordan, aware of her emotional connection, supported her wholeheartedly. He attended every recital, often slipping in at the last moment to avoid causing a media spectacle. On one such evening, at a local competition, Sienna was so nervous she nearly passed out backstage. She was trembling, hyperventilating. Jordan rushed to her side, held her hands, and reminded her of how far she had come. He whispered that she played for herself, not for anyone else's approval. Gathering her courage, Sienna went on stage and delivered a moving rendition of Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 14. The audience erupted in applause. Yet behind Sienna's bowed head, tears were streaming down her face, equal parts relief and lingering sorrow for a father she would never see again. Aidan, still the youngest, navigated life in the shadows of his older siblings' talents. He tinkered with coding projects in his room, disassembling toy robots and reprogramming them. By the time he was 10, he could write simple code to make a small robot vacuum clean specific patterns on the living room floor. Jordan recognized the spark of genius in him, but Aidan also developed a peculiar fear, the fear of disappearing. He had faint memories of an orphanage where kids came and went without warning, and a father he never got to know. At night, Jordan would sometimes find Aidan awake, hiding under the covers with a flashlight, reading about robotics competitions or advanced computing. Aidan confessed that he stayed up because he was afraid that if he fell asleep, he might wake up alone again. Jordan tried to reassure him, but it became clear that Aidan would need therapy and a consistent routine to manage these anxieties. It was a bitter reminder that love alone couldn't erase trauma. It could only offer a path toward healing. Despite the emotional undercurrents, Jordan found moments of pure joy in their home. Sunday mornings were dedicated to making pancakes together, Sienna flipping them with surprising dexterity, Toby decorating them with fruit, Lucy brewing coffee for the adults, and Aidan measuring out ingredients with scientific precision. Afterward, they would gather in the living room, talk about their dreams, and play board games. The sense of unity was palpable, a testament to how far they'd come from the days when the children cowered at the sound of strangers' footsteps. Jordan's own parents, Richard and Judith, often visited, cherishing their roles as grandparents. Richard taught Toby about carpentry in the garage, helping him build an easel. Judith read Sienna stories about famous musicians, fueling her ambition. Lucy asked them both endless questions about Jordan's childhood, eager to piece together a fuller picture of the man who had changed her life. Though a generation apart, the grandparents and grandchildren bonded over the shared excitement of forging new family traditions. As Shield Corps expanded globally, Jordan's time with the children sometimes felt frustratingly limited. There were weeks he had to travel for work, addressing major cybersecurity threats in Europe or Asia. He tried to keep in touch through nightly video calls, but the physical absence left an impact. During one particularly extended trip to Tokyo, Toby refused to speak to him on the phone, feeling abandoned all over again. Lucy became moody, skipping her volunteer sessions, and Sienna's performance in an upcoming piano competition suffered. Aidan wrote an entire code that looped the words, "Come home, Dad," on the screen, emailing it to Jordan late one night. Alarmed by the emotional fallout, Jordan made a drastic decision. He delegated major responsibilities to a newly appointed coup, determined to reduce his travel. The board of directors resisted, fearing a leadership gap, but Jordan held firm. "I'm not just a CEO," he told them. "I'm also a father." He returned home, fully immersing himself in the children's daily lives, driving them to school, cheering them on at recitals, and listening to every teenage drama unfolding in Lucy's world. The shift caused ripples at Shield Corps, but Jordan felt an indescribable relief in being present for his family. The children's teenage years brought both triumphs and heartbreaks. Lucy, at 17, was accepted into multiple top-tier colleges, including Harvard, Princeton, and MIT. The achievement validated her academic drive and turned her into a source of pride for the entire family. Yet she hesitated. The letter of acceptance from Harvard sat unopened on her desk for days because she was afraid of leaving home, worried that separation might shatter the fragile sense of security she'd built. Jordan assured her that going to college didn't mean abandoning the family. She finally opened the envelope and decided on Harvard, albeit with lingering trepidation. Toby, entering his sophomore year of high school, revisited the idea of attending a specialized art program. This time, he was more emotionally prepared. With Jordan's and his therapist's approval, Toby enrolled in a summer program in New York City, staying with a carefully vetted host family. Though nervous, he ended up thriving there, winning a youth art competition with a painting he titled Four Shadows, depicting him and his siblings standing together, holding hands under a single umbrella. The painting caught the eye of prominent art critics, and Toby returned home with newfound confidence and a portfolio of possibilities. Sienna's musical success continued. She was invited to audition for a prestigious conservatory's youth scholarship. On the day of the audition, her nerves were so debilitating that she froze in front of the grand piano. She couldn't strike a single note. It was Lucy, of all people, who intervened. Lucy whispered from the wings, "I'm here, we're all here," reminding Sienna that her family was behind her. Sienna closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and played the first note. An elegant, haunting melody filled the auditorium. Though she didn't land the top spot, she was offered a substantial scholarship to continue her musical education. The judges praised her emotional depth, a quality she'd undoubtedly honed through life's trials. Aidan, now a fast-talking 12-year-old, was testing out of standard math classes. He spent afternoons at a nearby coding academy, writing complex programs that astonished his teachers. His dream was to compete in a national robotics championship by the time he reached high school. Jordan provided him every resource, but always with the caution that success should never come at the cost of his mental well-being. Aidan nodded dutifully, although inside he still felt the old pang of insecurity. What if one day all of this was taken away? Throughout these peaks and valleys, Jordan poured his heart and resources into ensuring his children had the emotional support they needed. He'd become a public figure, not just in tech but also in humanitarian circles, often championing adoption and child welfare causes. He spoke at national conferences, donated heavily to orphans programs, and helped Redwood Home, the orphanage where he met his children, expand its facilities and staff. Media stories shifted tone, focusing less on whether Jordan's adoption was a PR stunt and more on the tangible impact he was making on vulnerable children's lives. Yet success came with its own pressures. ShieldCore continued to innovate, outpacing competitors, and Jordan was often hailed as a visionary. Investors clamored for expansions into new markets, new products. Some of his board members grew frustrated with his distractions as they saw them adoption, advocacy, public speaking, and the occasional lateness to meetings because of a child's emergency. The tension at work simmered like an unwelcome storm cloud, threatening to overshadow the progress Jordan had built both at home and in the boardroom. One restless evening, everything came to a head. Jordan was in his office at ShieldCore, finalizing a major acquisition deal that could revolutionize the company's product line. Suddenly, he received a call from Lucy, who was away at her freshman year in Harvard. She was in tears, saying she felt utterly alone, overwhelmed by the academic load and anxious about the future. Jordan dropped everything, telling his executive team to pause the negotiations. He rushed to Harvard, an hour's drive away, to comfort Lucy. While the father-daughter duo sat in a quiet dorm hallway, sipping lukewarm coffee from a vending machine, Lucy confessed that she sometimes felt guilty for having a chance at a prestigious college when her siblings had faced so many setbacks. Jordan assured her that every member of the family had their own path, and that her success was a beacon for her younger siblings. Lucy calmed down, promising to see the campus counselor regularly. But as Jordan left, he knew the board at ShieldCore would not be pleased about delaying a high-stakes deal for personal reasons. Tensions with the board escalated quickly. A few senior members circulated concerns about Jordan's lack of focus and overly philanthropic agenda. Behind the scenes, a rift formed. Some believed that a father figure juggling 4 children, each with their own emotional complexities, could not effectively steer a multinational tech giant. Others pointed to Jordan's track record, reminding doubters of how his values and empathy had shaped ShieldCore's inclusive culture, attracting top talent. The conflict reached a boiling point during a board meeting where Jordan was abruptly asked to choose, "Are you our full-time CEO, or do you want to step down to focus on your personal life?" Jordan was livid. He argued that a modern leader could balance personal commitments and professional success, especially in an age where work-life balance was increasingly valued. But as he looked around the boardroom table, he saw that the tide had turned. Feeling cornered, Jordan announced he would temporarily step back as CEO, becoming an executive chairman while the coup took over day-to-day operations. A hush fell over the room. It wasn't the victory the board members had hoped for, but it was enough to quiet the concerns for now. At home, the children sensed the shift in Jordan's mood. He was more present physically, yet there was a tension to him that worried them. Toby, now 16, felt guilty that his father had taken a step back at work. Lucy, from her dorm, texted daily, offering words of encouragement. Sienna, at 15, tried to uplift her father by playing cheerful tunes on the piano, hoping to fill the house with positive energy. Aidan, 13 and extremely observant, asked the question none of them dared voice, "Dad, are we hurting your career?" Jordan reassured them all that they were his priority, but late at night, he grappled with doubts. Had he compromised his life's work? Or was he simply adhering to the promise he made to be there for his children, no matter the cost? Still, he reminded himself of the bigger picture. Shield Corps might have thrived because of his leadership, but his family was thriving because of his love. Time marched on, and the children matured. Lucy turned 19, completing her freshman year successfully, thanks to therapy and better coping strategies for her anxiety. She even started a mentorship group at Harvard for first-generation college students and adoptees. Toby, 16, was accepted into a prestigious art exchange program in Paris, his dream city. Sienna, at 15, performed her first solo recital, dedicating it to Jordan, who sat in the front row with tears glistening in his eyes. Aidan, 13, built a prototype for an autonomous drone that could assist in emergency rescue operations, winning a national STEM competition. Watching his children flourish gave Jordan a sense of validation that far outweighed any regret he had about stepping down as Shield Corps' CEO. He remained involved in strategic decisions as executive chairman, but no longer bore the brunt of daily crises. Some might have seen it as a step down, but Jordan saw it as stepping forward into a life where he was both an influential tech leader and a devoted father. Fate, however, had more challenges in store. One winter night, Jordan received a frantic call from Redwood Home, the orphanage he'd been supporting. Claire Donovan, the social worker, explained they had discovered new information about the 4 children's biological mother, who had been missing for years. She was found in a distant state, living under an assumed name, battling substance abuse and in dire health. She expressed a dying wish to see her children once more. The news shattered the fragile peace in the Lattimore home. Lucy wanted answers about why their mother had abandoned them. Toby wavered between anger and curiosity. Sienna was terrified that meeting her mother might tear their family apart. Aidan, barely old enough to remember her, felt a deep, inexplicable sorrow. Jordan supported whatever the children decided, but he worried about reopening old wounds that had barely healed. After days of tense discussion, the siblings agreed to meet her, albeit reluctantly. Jordan arranged a flight to a small city in Indiana, where their biological mother, Cynthia, was hospitalized. Doctors said her condition was terminal late-stage cancer, compounded by years of drug abuse. When they entered the hospital room, the air felt suffocating. Cynthia's sunken eyes lit up at the sight of her children, but her body was frail and her voice trembled. Lucy stood by the door, tears streaming but face resolute. Toby approached cautiously, his hands clenched. Sienna and Aidan lingered behind Jordan, unsure how to react. Cynthia tried to explain the unexplainable, the crippling addiction, the mental breakdown after losing her husband, the sense of worthlessness that made her believe her children were better off without her. She begged their forgiveness. Lucy responded with a mixture of rage and sorrow, asking why she didn't get help or reach out. Cynthia sobbed, having no adequate answer. The meeting ended in a swirl of conflicting emotions: anger, pity, heartbreak. The children left, each weighed down by a question that might never be fully resolved. Could their mother have chosen differently? Cynthia passed away 2 weeks later. The funeral was small, attended only by hospital staff, a few acquaintances, and the children. They stood by a simple graveside in a cemetery that overlooked a cold, grey horizon. Lucy's face was numb. Toby wept quietly. Sienna clung to her father's arm, and Aidan stared at the headstone, tears rolling down his cheeks. Jordan felt helpless watching his children confront mortality and the complexities of a mother they'd never truly known. Back home, the emotional toll manifested in different ways. Lucy withdrew, skipping her mentorship sessions. Toby painted relentlessly dark, intense canvases filled with swirling shapes. Sienna's music took on a melancholy tone, her notes quivering with sorrow. Aidan grew more silent, burying himself in coding projects as if trying to outrun his feelings. Jordan scrambled to find them grief counselors, but he knew this was a wound that would need time, empathy, and the children's own resilience to heal. In the following months, a quiet heaviness settled over the Lattimore household. Jordan noticed Lucy skipping meals or spending entire weekends locked in her room. Worried, he asked her if she'd consider taking a leave from Harvard to focus on mental health. She refused. Her studies had become a lifeline, a distraction from the turmoil inside. Toby's art grew more recognized, with a gallery in Boston offering to host an exhibition of his latest pieces. But Toby declined, saying he wasn't ready for public scrutiny. Sienna missed a piano competition, citing sudden anxiety attacks. Aidan, only 14, began exploring darker corners of the internet, developing a cynical view of the world he once found so fascinating. Jordan felt as if his family were disintegrating before his eyes. In desperation, he tried organizing a family therapy retreat in Vermont, away from the city. The children reluctantly agreed, though none seemed enthusiastic. The weekend was tense. Group sessions alternated between tearful confessions and bouts of defiance. Lucy voiced anger. Toby admitted guilt for unexpressed feelings. Sienna broke down, recalling her earliest memories of the orphanage, and Aidan expressed fears that the family would fall apart completely. Out of those stormy sessions, a glimmer of hope emerged. By confronting their grief and unresolved traumas, the family realized they still had each other. Lucy confessed she felt pressured to be perfect, fearing she'd otherwise disappoint Jordan. Toby shared he was scared that his passion for art made him an outlier, more vulnerable in a world that demanded strength. Sienna spoke of feeling overshadowed by her siblings' achievements, always the quiet one. Aidan revealed his nightmares of returning to Redwood home alone. Jordan listened intently, promising each child that they were enough for him, for this family, and for each other. They returned to Boston with fragile but renewed determination. Lucy sought counseling at Harvard, learning to open up about her feelings rather than burying them. Toby began painting hopeful images, using brighter palettes. Sienna practiced more boldly, even playing an impromptu mini-concert at a local nursing home to bring joy to others. Aidan took a short break from coding to focus on building stronger, in-person friendships. It wasn't an instant cure, but a step toward rebuilding their sense of unity. Meanwhile, Shield's core faced a scandal that tested Jordan's leadership from afar. A data breach led to leaked information about thousands of clients. The new CEO and board scrambled, asking Jordan for advice. Despite his official role as executive chairman, Jordan dove in, organizing crisis management teams, liaising with government agencies, and reassuring clients personally. He worked late nights but insisted on coming home for dinner and bedtime with the kids, even if it meant resuming crisis calls after they slept. His dual commitment to family and company drew renewed admiration from employees who remembered the culture Jordan had fostered. In the end, the crisis was mitigated, client trust largely preserved. It served as a testament to Jordan's balanced approach, neither purely devoted to the corporate world nor solely consumed by fatherhood, but navigating both realms with a sense of purpose. The board publicly thanked Jordan, causing some of those who had doubted him to quietly reconsider their stance. As Lucy approached her 20th birthday, she decided she wanted to spend it quietly at home with family rather than at college parties. The siblings convened in the living room, reminiscing about the years since that fateful adoption day. They flipped through photo albums, documenting both joyous and difficult moments. Toby's first painting exhibit, Sienna's first piano competition, Aidan building his first robot, Lucy performing in a school debate. Tears and laughter mingled as they recognized how far they had come from the orphanage floors and the nightmares that once haunted them. Lucy made a speech that night, thanking Jordan for not giving up on them when so many others would have. She acknowledged the heartbreak they'd experienced recently with their biological mother, admitting that she might never fully forgive or understand, but she had learned the power of compassion. "We are a family," she concluded, her voice trembling with emotion, not by blood, but by choice. The room erupted in applause, and Jordan realized this was one of the moments he had dreamed of, a family woven together by love and resilience. Toby, emboldened by Lucy's words, decided to accept the Boston Gallery's offer to exhibit his artwork. The event turned into a family affair. Jordan used his connections to invite art critics, philanthropic partners, and close friends, including Claire Donovan. On opening night, Toby stood in a room adorned with his paintings, a chronicle of trauma, love, and hope. One piece, titled Rebirth, depicted a silhouette of a man kneeling beside 4 children, each child's face illuminated by a different color. Critics praised Toby's emotional depth, calling him a rising star in contemporary art. For Toby, the real victory was seeing his adoptive father beaming with pride. Meanwhile, Sienna seized the moment to perform a short piano piece at the gallery's opening, mesmerizing the crowd with a gentle sonata that seemed to cradle the room in warmth. Applause thundered, and for a brief moment, each child felt recognized for their unique gifts. Jordan's chest swelled with pride, his eyes moist with tears of joy. Yet, tragedy seldom asks for permission. A few months later, Toby was returning from an art class one evening when a reckless driver ran a red light, causing a severe accident. Toby's injuries were life-threatening: multiple fractures, internal bleeding, a head injury that left doctors uncertain if he would ever fully recover. The phone call that night shattered the household's fragile peace. Jordan rushed to the hospital, followed by a frantic Sienna, Aidan, and Lucy, who dropped everything at Harvard to be at her brother's side. Time seemed suspended in the sterile glow of the emergency room. The next hours were touch and go, with Toby undergoing multiple surgeries. As he lay unconscious, hooked up to tubes and monitors, the family clung to each other. Lucy prayed silently, Sienna sobbed against Jordan's shoulder, and Aidan stared at Toby's pale face, whispering, "You can't leave us." Jordan tried to remain stoic, but he felt the weight of his children's pain as though it were his own. For weeks, Toby lay in a coma-like state, his body striving to heal. Jordan refused to leave the hospital for more than a few hours at a time, setting up a makeshift office in the waiting room so he could continue working remotely. Sienna's piano recitals were postponed. Lucy took a leave of absence from Harvard, and Aidan used his coding skills to build a digital platform that allowed the family to keep relatives, friends, and well-wishers updated on Toby's condition. People from all over the world, some who had followed Jordan's story, sent messages of support. During the agonizing wait, Jordan experienced a terrifying déjà vu of the fear he had once felt at the orphanage, wondering if he could protect these children from a dangerous world. He realized anew that no amount of money or success could shield them from life's unpredictability. Each passing day without Toby's recovery threatened to unravel the family's newfound strength. But they held on, keeping vigil, hoping and praying for a miracle. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Toby opened his eyes. Weak and disoriented, he blinked at the faces surrounding him, tears forming at the corners of his eyes as he recognized his family. The relief was overwhelming. However, Toby's challenges were far from over. The doctors explained he had sustained neurological damage. His right side was partially paralyzed, and his ability to paint might be compromised. Rehabilitation would be a long, strenuous process. Sienna immediately suggested music therapy, recalling how a gentle melody could soothe frayed nerves. Lucy contacted her network at Harvard, seeking specialists who could aid in Toby's physical and cognitive recovery. Aidan, channeling his tech-savvy energy, designed an app that helped Toby perform repetitive motions to improve motor skills. Jordan spared no expense, hiring the best rehab specialists. He also reminded Toby daily, "Your art isn't just in your hands, it's in your heart." In the months that followed, Toby worked relentlessly to regain control of his body. Physical therapy sessions left him exhausted, often in tears from frustration and pain. Yet he persisted, fueled by the unwavering support of his family. Sienna played her piano each evening at the hospital or rehab center, bringing Toby a sense of calm. Lucy took care of Toby's medical appointments, managing a meticulous schedule while continuing her college work online. Aidan's app became a small sensation among patients with similar injuries, garnering praise from medical professionals. During one therapy session, Toby attempted to hold a paintbrush for the first time since the accident. His hand trembled violently and the brush clattered to the floor. He broke down, sobbing that he would never be an artist again. Jordan knelt beside him, picking up the brush and placing it back in Toby's hand. "Even if it takes years, I'll be here with you," Jordan whispered. "We all will." Toby nodded, tears still streaming, but with a flicker of determination in his eyes. Slowly, Toby made progress. Each week brought minor victories, a steadier grip, improved balance, a return of some fine motor control. Eventually, he could paint simple strokes, albeit shakily. The family cheered him on, celebrating each new stroke as if it were a masterpiece. Toby's doctor was amazed by his resilience, attributing it not just to medical intervention, but also to the family's unwavering emotional support. It was around this time that Jordan realized the heartbreak they feared had indeed arrived, but not in the form of betrayal or abandonment. It was the realization that life was fragile, that everything they'd built could be dismantled by a single, reckless moment on the road. Yet this heartbreak also became a source of unbreakable unity, a reminder that they had chosen each other for better or worse. Over countless hospital visits and therapy sessions, the Lattimores bonded in ways few families could ever imagine, forging a solidarity that would carry them through any storm. By Toby's 18th birthday, he had regained enough motor function to hold an art brush with reasonable control. Though his strokes were different, looser, less precise, there was a raw, emotional quality to his new paintings that critics later described as hauntingly evocative. He painted one piece called Scarred Canvas, a representation of a face split into fragments, each fragment painted in a different, vibrant color. It depicted pain, but also resilience. A local gallery displayed it, and it became a talking point, drawing crowds who saw in it a universal story of survival. That day, the Lattimore family threw Toby a subdued but heartfelt birthday party, complete with Lucy's homemade chocolate cake and Sienna's piano serenade. Aidan proudly demonstrated his updated therapy app, which had now helped dozens of recovering patients. In a short speech, Toby thanked each family member for never giving up on him. Looking around, Jordan was overwhelmed by the life he had helped create. These 4 children, once deemed unwanted, had become the heartbeat of his existence. On a crisp autumn evening, Jordan decided to revisit Redwood Home with the children. Now well-funded, the orphanage had undergone a transformation. Bright new paint, renovated dormitories, and a more dedicated staff greeted them. Claire Donovan was there, tears in her eyes, as she saw how the Lattimore siblings had grown. Lucy encouraged the current residents never to lose hope. Toby shared sketches with aspiring young artists. Sienna played a short piano piece on a donated keyboard. Aidan discussed coding with tech-savvy teens, promising to set up a small computer lab soon. It was a full-circle moment. Each sibling walked through the halls where they once felt scared and forgotten. Now, they returned as symbols of what love, support, and resilience could achieve. Before leaving, Lucy posted a sticky note on a bulletin board that read, "You are loved. Never doubt it." The children each added their own messages, collectively forming a mosaic of hope. Jordan, watching them, felt an indescribable mix of pride and humility. In the following years, Lucy graduated from Harvard with honors, dedicating her thesis to exploring social policies that support adoptive families. Toby's art continued to evolve, gaining recognition for its raw, emotive power. Sienna secured a spot at a conservatory, her compositions reflecting a maturity beyond her years. Aidan, ever the inventor, launched a startup focused on assistive technology, his therapy app becoming a nationwide tool for rehabilitation clinics. Jordan maintained his role as executive chairman at ShieldCore, ensuring the company continued its mission of protecting digital information. But more importantly, he expanded his philanthropic work, setting up the Lattimore Foundation to support orphanages and foster care systems worldwide. Whenever interviewed, Jordan credited his children for being his greatest inspiration. Life had tested them all, but it was in the testing that they found their collective strength. Yet the heartbreak the world spoke of was not just Toby's accident or the painful meeting with their biological mother. It was the profound realization that even in a family bound by love, they could never fully erase the scars of their early trauma. That realization was woven into every painting Toby created, every note Sienna played, every philanthropic initiative Lucy spearheaded, and every line of code Aidan wrote. It was, in its own way, a beautiful heartbreak, the understanding that the most enduring bonds are those tempered by adversity. The story of Jordan Lattimore and his 4 adopted children spread, touching hearts around the globe. Some praised them as a model family, others questioned the role of wealth in their healing, but none could deny the raw truth: love, when chosen every day, could transform lives. And in that transformation was both joy and sorrow, a testament to the complexities of human resilience. Years later, people would still talk about the millionaire CEO who adopted 4 kids, but the real story was always about the kids who saved him right back and the heartbreak they all endured to find each other. If this story moved you, even for a moment, remember that real-life heartbreak and triumph often unfold quietly behind closed doors, whether it's in an orphanage hallway or a humble family living room. Jordan Lattimore's choice to adopt 4 unwanted children isn't just a tale of generosity. It's proof that love is a journey fraught with risks, sorrow, and ultimate redemption. Each child forged their destiny, turning a tragic beginning into an extraordinary narrative of resilience. If you believe in the power of compassion and the unbreakable bonds of family, please consider giving this video a thumbs up, sharing it with someone who needs hope, and subscribing to our channel for more stories that illuminate the strength of the human spirit. Your support helps spread these messages of love, healing, and the will to keep going no matter what life throws our way.